it's ready. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुत पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातान् सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखावितांश्च। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। All of you please raise your hand. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone. So this is Radha Madhav in front of you. Beautiful deities of Radha Madhav. This is a temple in Sridham Mayapur. And also we have Lalita and Vishakha's picture which we kept today. So this is a beautiful picture of Krishna. And whenever you're viewing Krishna, we should start from seeing his beautiful lotus feet. And he's in the Tribhanga form, which is mesmerizing. And he's always with his flute, which his flute is the most mesmerizing part. You will be seeing that in the Gopi Geet, how nicely the gopis define his flute. That is the way he blows his flute is the most beautiful thing. So let's start with our today's session, which is all our teachings are based on Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada's teachings. It's based on his teachings, and also he's our founder Acharya. That is founder Acharya of ISKCON, which is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And just a quick revision of what we did in the past 6 days, because we're going to be venturing into our 6th chapter about what we did in the past 5 days, so that we can see the 6th chapter clearly. So in the first chapter, we saw Arjuna was observing the army, and he was having compassion and loss of enjoyment, and also he found that it's all going to be a lot of sinful reactions, and he gets confused. He comes into a doubt. So, and we see a lot of doubt. Now we think that why is Arjuna so confused? Arjuna is confused in every single chapter. Well, confusion is very, very good. In the beginning, before you accept Krishna, you will have doubts. So you should clear all your doubts before you venture into completely believing. And once you believe it, you should not leave Krishna's lotus feet. You should hold it very, very tight. This is exactly one should be as a disciple, that we should clear our doubts on a daily basis. And I'm very happy that all of you are also so nicely listening and also clearing your doubts. And so once he feels compassion, he laments, and then he says, I don't know if I should fight or not fight. I'm confused, is what we saw yesterday. And in the second chapter, Arjuna surrenders to Krishna. So there we see how important a guru is. Now we think that guru is somebody who's sitting in the school and teaching us science, maths. That's not the one. A guru is a person who gives us spiritual knowledge. A spiritual knowledge which can lead us to meet our ultimate goal of reaching Krishna. That person is the guru, who will guide us in our personal life more than our school life. The person will be guiding us in our personal life as to how we should behave, how should we build our character, we should be good people. All this is actually done with the help of a guru. And Krishna gave this jnana about the body and the soul to to Arjuna, and also how to control our mind and senses. He informed us, but in detail we'll be studying today. And also he gave an example of who is a self-realized soul and how can you renounce. And again, we started our third chapter with karma yoga, where it started with the doubt again as to how to perform one's duties, and then we saw many types of yoga ladders, which were explained by Krishna, that you have so many options in front of you, you have so many types of yoga, but I'll tell you the best, and that best is coming up today. And also we have what is an action and what is renunciation, what is action, that is karma, and what is tyaga, is what we saw in that chapter. And also we saw how jnana is the glorified jnana and process of transcendental knowledge. What is transcendental knowledge? Knowledge itself means connecting us to Krishna. First of all, we saw confidential knowledge in the second chapter, that we are not this body, we are this soul. And here in the fourth chapter, we saw transcendental knowledge. Knowledge means anything that is connecting us to Krishna is knowledge. And transcendental knowledge is about Krishna. So he had the same confusion again. He said, do I do the action or should I renounce? What is best for me, Krishna? This was his confusion. Next, again, we saw that we had in the fifth chapter, we saw Arjuna asking, what should I do? Should I work, or should I work in devotion, or should I renounce the work? So Krishna said, actually, I would prefer if you can do work in devotion. This way, while you're working, you can purify your body, mind, and senses without any desires. Remember, we are just telling on a daily basis, all of you should not lie. You should be nice to other living entities. You should offer them whatever is required. These things are the ones that will purify our mind, senses, and consciousness. Let's read ahead today. So in the current chapter, in today's chapter, we will see how can we make our mind an enemy or a friend. And also Ashtanga Yoga we'll see. And also we'll see what is a success and what is a failure. And the last one we'll see who is the best yogi. So all of you might be wondering, what exactly is yoga? Because if you see, we see many types of yoga. Just a second. Sorry about that. Yes, so we will see. Sorry about that. Yes, so what exactly is yoga? So it's very important for us to understand what exactly is yoga, because actual yoga is this, what we're going to introduce today. But in our daily lives, we see many types of yoga. Oh, look at this man. He's just digging himself into the earth. So is this yoga really? Is this yoga? You should just think about it for a while. We'll just spend a minute to understand, is this yoga? And we have another person who is like giving crazy poses, and he's like, there are people who are giving crazy poses in front of the beach. So they're thinking that this is yoga. And look at this. It's like they're taking hilarious next level of yoga of drinking intoxicants and thinking that this is kind of a yoga. And also we have somebody who is having kind of a goat yoga. I'm not sure if this is really yoga. And also we have somebody chair yoga. So are they really connecting God over here? I don't see connection of God. We have like various types of yoga. We had several people even in the past who tried to do certain yoga which was not even connecting to God. We have somebody, I mean, for pregnancy, and also for chair yoga. So we have various types of, and look at this, it's even more hilarious. We have a cat yoga. So now the yoga is taken new levels. So in today's world, all the learnings that we have in the spirituality is taken in the wrong direction. So we should know what exactly is the right direction, and hence we very, very, very urgently need a guru who can take us to the right path and the right direction, right? So let's move ahead to see what are the other new innovative ways of yoga that human beings have invented. Now we have, although Krishna gave certain processes of yoga, human beings have taken it to the next level of wellness yoga. So just taking care of your body is yoga. First of all, we are not this body, and we have people who are taking care of this body for so long. So we have like back hair yoga, desktop yoga. So it's taking new version of desktop yoga. It's taking technical yoga over here, and we have tennis yoga. So even the villagers coming up with the tennis yoga, and also we have office yoga. So somebody's in suit and he's doing yoga. And so just losing your weight is also yoga. I mean, if they just stop eating, automatically you'll stop growing. So this is also another type of yoga. So these are the types of new innovative ways of yoga that all of them have innovated themselves. But is this really yoga? We saw in our third chapter. These are all actually not even yoga. So let's see, what did Krishna tell what is yoga? So we saw in the fourth chapter that somewhere where you're controlling your senses, Krishna says if you're controlling your senses, what are your senses? You have nose, eyes, mouth. You have your nose, eyes, mouth, tongue, ears, and skin. So these are your senses. So when you are putting these in action, how? How are you putting these in action? You're trying to work on your daily basis. Like what? I'm going to work. By performing some work, by performing some of my duties, I'm going to earn something, and I cleanse myself by offering those fruits to Krishna. That becomes the Karma Yoga. Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means you will try to learn about various techniques of how we can control our mind, and how I can control my mind with knowledge. That becomes your Jnana Yoga. And we have Dhyana Yoga, which we'll be learning today. Here, you're not only controlling your senses, not only controlling your mind, you're also controlling through your intelligence. So that becomes your Jnana Yoga. And the most biggest secret, and I think it's Advaita and Anvita who kept chasing me for the past 3 days during question and answer sessions. Mataji, can you please tell me in the beginning what exactly is the secret that you kept with you and you didn't let us know? So the biggest secret about Bhakti Yoga is, in case of senses, you are putting all your senses to action. I mean, you're putting your senses in action, and you're offering the fruits to Krishna. And now we all know how to offer fruits to Krishna. We saw yesterday any work that is performed will have good action and bad action. And so I'll have a good fruits and bad fruits. So instead of depending on fruits, I just do the work and offer all the fruits to Krishna, thinking I have worked for Krishna. But over here, we have Jnana Yoga, where all the Jnanis, they perform this yoga and they offer their fruits to Krishna. And in case of Dhyana Yogis, they are doing the Dhyana on Supreme and also offer their intelligence to Krishna. That is by focusing on Krishna in their hearts. But Bhakti Yoga is the most sweetest. The secret is Bhakti Yoga is the sweetest. And we'll see how to perform Bhakti Yoga in the later part of the chapters today. But I will really reveal the secret to you today. Bhakti Yoga is the most sweetest because we are connecting our soul to Krishna. So you're not connecting your senses, you're not connecting your intelligence, you're not connecting your mind, you're connecting your heart. Your heart and your soul is the most important part. And when you're connecting your soul and heart, you're actually connecting to others. Why? When I'm talking to my mom, I'm actually talking to my mom because I love her, right? So this is how it's so important that we connect our soul and heart to Krishna. So this is why it's the most sweetest and the biggest secret that everybody should know, that Krishna is telling that by performing bhakti, you're connecting your soul and heart to me, right? So this is the most sweetest way that you should think, I'm not this body, I'm the soul, and my soul belongs to Krishna, and I want to be with Krishna all the time in Goloka Vrindavana, playing with him, like how Sumangal cracks lovely jokes, and also we have all the gopis performing nice leelas, and also we have all the birds and all the animals playing with each other beautifully. They are cooperating with each other and they're so nicely loving each other. So love is the topmost. We should all know that love is the topmost, that Krishna is always loving all of us. Remember, we got the secret yesterday. Krishna is sitting in us always. He loves us so much that he hides and he's always watching what we're doing. So, and hence we should also love him and try to go back to Goloka Vrindavana. Now, what is Ashtanga Yoga or what is Dhyana Yoga? This is something that all of you have been asking me for the past few days. Mataji, what is meditation? Mataji, what is Dhyana? I got this question many times. So today we will see in length what is Dhyana Yoga, what is meditation. So, in case of meditation, it has three divisions to start with. We need 8 limbs connection. So, the 8 limbs connection, what are the 8 limbs, you might ask? The 8 limbs connection is, first we start with yama and then niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. Now, what is this? Mataji, it sounds like I need to by heart this and it looks like another cycle for me to by heart. No, you don't need to remember. But I'm just telling you all of this so that you know, understand how intelligent you should be to perform this. Krishna knows that in the current yuga we are not this intelligent. He didn't tell us to study this. Let me just increase the volume on my computer. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yes. So Krishna didn't tell, remember all this. Krishna is just telling for you too, it's good to know information for you that Dhyana yoga is very difficult. What is it? So here, yama means I have eternal disciplines that I need to follow. And okay, then we just saw yoga, many types of many types of yoga. Where does that fall under? That falls under the first one, and it doesn't even fall under the first one because it's still incomplete, because they can't even process this yama means external disciplines. That is, I try to control my breath, can try to control my mind, and in this even the diet comes into picture. But they're not even able to control their mind and senses. If you see, some of them are drinking coke, and that's coke yoga. So these are the types of yoga that have come up. So the point is that only they are still coming up to learn the first stage. But to be in Ashtanga yoga or just to be in yoga or dhyana yoga, after that, after external disciplines, you'll have to control your niyama, internal disciplines, where you have your chakras. You need to control your chakras, and also asana. You have to sit your back erect, extremely straight. Your back should be extremely straight so that you're able to understand your complete back erectness. And pranayama, so you control your breath. So there are certain number of minutes that you have to inhale and exhale, and there are certain number of times you inhale and exhale, and you hold your breath. When you inhale, you hold your breath. When you exhale, you hold your breath. So it's like kumbhaka, rechaka, all of this processes. And also pratyahara, after pranayama, once you have mastered the pratyahara, after you mastered the pranayama, that is breathing control, breathing techniques, you'll learn how to withdraw your senses. How to withdraw my senses means, what do you mean, Mataji? You need to know how to, if you're hungry, you'll have to control your hunger. If you're thirsty, you have to control your thirst. If you're feeling like getting up and not moving around, you still have to say, oh mind, please stay. You cannot move anywhere out because you're just focusing on something, and you'll have to focus on that same thing 24 hours. And then you go to the dharana. You have to focus completely. You're controlling your mind over there, so you can't think anything but one thing that you're thinking of. And last, dhyana, so meditative absorption. There you're controlling your senses, mind and intelligence, and with intelligence you just go off to samadhi. So you're just lying in like complete absolute nothing. So you're just lying in that for so many years. Some of the sages, they even live there like that for more than hundreds and hundreds of years. And in Satya Yuga, people used to sit in that posture for thousands of years. So this is how they used to control themselves. And this is very, very impractical, is what I feel. I don't know if you can do it, but I feel it's very impractical. So one of you can actually read this. It's okay. I mean, just in the interest of time, I will try to complete it myself. I want all of you to understand first. Maybe you can read it later. So Yama, he should live alone in a secluded place and should all of you carefully listen. I know I told you to read, but I want to complete it faster so that it's not very important though. The other things I will ask you. So just for you to know, but listen carefully and try to understand. It's very impractical. That's why I'm just not giving a chance. So it's like Yama. What does Yama mean? He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control mind. Niyama, temperate in the habits of eating, sleeping, working, recreation. Asana, lay kushagrass on the ground and then cover it with a deerskin. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. One should hold one's body's neck, head erect in a straight line, and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, one should meditate upon me. This is what Krishna is saying. You should meditate on me. But how should you meditate on me? Lay kosha grass ground on the ground and then deer skin, and you should be situated in a sacred place. Keep your body, neck, head erect. Stare steadily. Stare. So it's like stare steadily at the tip of your nose. And so this is like extremely difficult. Pranayama. Practice stopping the moment of outgoing breath into the incoming and incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus to the last remain in trance. Pratyahara, cessation of material existence. Dharana, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence. Devoid of material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. So here he's controlling his mind. Mental activities are controlled here. Dhyana, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always studying the meditation of the transcendent self. So he is so focused like a lamp situated where there is no wind, like in a vacuum. If you place a lamp where there is no wind, how it's so steady, it's like that. Samadhi, one is never shaken even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from the material contact. So it's a very difficult process. Now, we had somebody who did this kind of a penance in the past, Dhyana Yoga, and it was done by our Dhruv Maharaj. I'm sure many of you have heard Dhruv Maharaj's story. Just to retell once again, Dhruv Maharaj was a son of Uttanapada. And once what happened, the son of Uttanapada, that is Dhruv Maharaj, was with his father and mother, and also he has a stepmom. And the stepmom had a brother, and the stepmom was a bit mean to him, that she made his son sit on the father. And when Dhruv Maharaj saw his father, like all the children love their father, he came running to sit on his lap. But his mother, that is the stepmother, told him, "Oh, you don't deserve to be sitting on your father. You're actually born to your mother and you're not born to me. So I won't let you sit on him." This way, our Dhruv Maharaj became very, very sad. Now he's a small child. So being a child, of course, if someone's not let to sit on their father, they would feel a bit saddened. Listening to this, he went to his mom and he asked, "Mom, this is what happened. I'm very, very saddened. What do I do?" And he cried. Dhruv Maharaj was told, "Okay, no problem. But this could happen." Then he said, "Okay, Mom, I actually want to be sitting on my father. I'm very, very saddened now. I don't know who can give me the justice for all the things that has happened to me." When he asked his mom like that, his mom told, "Okay, don't worry. Krishna is the supreme person and he is the supreme father of everyone." Then he said, "Mom, I would like to meet him and I want to express what I felt about all of this and I want justice for myself." Then his mom told, "Okay, then if you want to meet him, you'll have to do a penance. You'll have to do a lot of penance to do the same." He said, "I'm ready for it." And he started walking into the jungle. So, whenever somebody is looking for Krishna, Krishna always sends someone. And that someone is your guru. So, all of you, when you wish to have a guru, you have to pray hard. You have to pray deeper in your heart that Krishna, please send a guru for me. I want to learn what is spirituality. I want to learn what is spiritual knowledge. I want to connect myself to Krishna. When you pray like that, automatically Krishna sends a nice guru who can help you and guide you. And the same thing happened with Dhruva Maharaj also. So he was see here, he was feeling jealous and he was talking to him. And then we had Dhruva Maharaj met Srila Narada Muni. So he met Srila Narada Muni on his way while he was walking in the jungle, and he told, "Oh, little boy, what are you doing here in the jungle?" Then immediately Dhruva Maharaj told, "Look, actually, all of this happened with me. I'm saddened that my father didn't let me sit on his lap. I would like to meet Lord Vishnu. How can I meet Lord Vishnu? I want justice. I want to know how can I meet him and ask him that I need a bigger kingdom." Then he said, okay. He felt that he should be guiding him, and he said, all you need to do is you can just go sit in this under this tree, and you can pray. And he gave him how he can pray. So what did he have to do? All that we learned just now in case of dhyana yoga, he did that. And can you believe it? A 5-year-old boy who was walking alone in the jungle has like its deeper jungles, not today's times. In Satya Yuga we had like the jungles are like even deeper where you don't have people walking around. In today's world, some of the jungles at least have people around, but in those days it's very hard to find. You have like really wild animals. So he was walking alone in the jungle, and he met Narada Muni, and he got this mantra that he can chant. Taking this mantra, he sat down under the tree and he started chanting for 1 month, and then he kept saying Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he kept chanting and chanting and chanting for several days, and months passed. After 1 or 2 months, he stopped even eating food. He started eating only once a day, that too only 1 or 2 bites. And then after some of the months, again he stopped eating any food at all. He started consuming one glass of water, and then after some days he started drinking only 1 or 2 gulps of air. So he even stopped taking food, water, everything he stopped, and he was only taking a little bit of blob of air. Just that. Finally, after 6 months of very hard penance, we had Lord Vishnu appear in front of him. And when initially once Lord Vishnu came in his heart, he gave darshan and he ran away. When he saw that Krishna, when he thought about this, that is Dhruva Maharaj thought about this, he said, now I'm not going to open my eyes until Krishna comes. So because he thought of him many times and he thought he has come in his mind, but he didn't. And when he saw that this time I won't open my eyes, Krishna was trapped in his mind when he went inside him. So he's like, here Lord Vishnu comes and he gives him darshan. When he gives him darshan, he says, please, I will not open my eyes unless I know that you are over here. And really Krishna came in front of him, and he was actually having this misconception many times that maybe he's in front of him, but he wasn't. So finally when he came, uh, he opened his eyes and he saw Vishnu was looking so beautiful. After looking at him, he was so mesmerized and he didn't know what to speak. He was like, what do I tell now? How do I even offer my respect to Krishna? He couldn't even know that. Then if you see in the picture over here, Krishna came and he blessed him and he touched him. As soon as he touched, he started glorifying Krishna so nicely. He remembered everything. So Krishna, when Krishna purifies you, all your contaminations are removed. You don't have these impurities inside you, rather you become very beautiful person. So we have these impurities which will be removed by Krishna automatically, and that's why we need to pray Krishna. We can swim in the ocean how much ever you want to, but if you want to get out of the ocean, Krishna has to give his hand so that he'll pick us out of this ocean, right? So dhyana yoga is very difficult. We cannot stop eating, drinking, and stop breathing. It's very difficult. He did Ashtanga yoga where he had to stop his breath also. So he used to take breath only once in a week, blob, and then he used to go back. It's very hard. So this is why Dhyana yoga is not recommended. But why did Mataji tell all those times? Mataji was telling you so that you know how difficult it is to do Dhyana yoga. And Arjuna, in our consequence, he's asking, Arjuna is also saying that, Arjuna is the best archer. Even when he was a very small child, when his guru asked him, "What do you see?" When all others were looking at something else, they were seeing the tree, they were seeing the so many other things on the tree. But Arjuna straight, his point was on the eye of the bird. So this is how he's very, very sharp. At the same time, when he was asked during the wedding, also Arjuna could straight away hit the target of the eye of the fish, and also he was the best among the archer. Now, what does Arjuna have to got to say here? Arjuna is also Naranarayana Rishi. They're still there in Badrikashrama. And also Arjuna is the best archer, as we all know. He got Pashupatastra from Lord Shiva himself. What is Arjuna saying to us? He's saying, are you going to give this yoga system a try? So I was just thinking that to ask you, oh yeah, I have a poll. I would like all of you to answer. Would you like to try this Dhyana yoga? You can answer. Would you like to give a try to this Dhyana yoga? I can see around 55% of them saying no, and we have some of them who are saying yes, that they would like to go to do this huge penance. Oh, not bad. We have almost 50% of them who would like to try the yoga of reaching the Godhead in 6 months. I'm very happy that you're all motivated to meet Krishna, but at the same time, we want to use practical methods, not impractical methods. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for using the poll. And so it's very hard, but I see that some of you really want to, if you're very eager to meet Krishna and do the Dhyana yoga. But let me tell you something. Dhyana yoga will make you reach after millions of years. It's even harder. And if you're taking up bhakti yoga, you'll be able to reach probably in the next couple of lives. But if you're taking up dhyana yoga, it's even longer. And in today's times, everybody wants quick results. They don't want very, very hard results. They want very quick results. They are not ready for penance. So that's actually in today's times people think of. So let's revise the yoga ladder once again. What is we just learned the yoga ladder in the 4th chapter. I'm just trying to revise so that you know how to reach Krishna, because all of you are very eager to meet Krishna, and the whole purpose of meeting Krishna, the whole purpose of yoga itself is meeting Krishna. And I see that all of you are excited to meet Krishna, and you're even ready to do the penance, which is the most hardest. But don't worry, we have easiest methods. So in the first case, all of us do 4 things, that is eating, mating, sleeping, and procreating, which is like it's easiest. Like animals also do it, we are also doing it. It's the most lowest of the forms. Everybody do not get the opportunity to listen about bhakti yoga or about the soul. So once people hear about the soul, they automatically understand that they need to elevate themselves. So instead of being living like an animal, they try to do regulated sense gratification. Regulated sense gratification, how, Mataji? I don't know what is regulated sense gratification. Means you will try to gratify your senses, but at the same time, you will not do anything abominable to other living entities, and you will try to be very, offer your fruits to the lords, any other lords. You even believe, in case of karma kanda, you will even believe that you are believing in devtas. But in case of nishkama karma yoga, here is where you're actually coming to the process of yoga, where you're giving the labor of your fruits to Krishna. So here you're connecting with Krishna. But in karma kanda, you have not yet started to connect to Krishna yet. And in case of jnana yoga, you're connecting to Krishna, but at the same time, some of them do not connect to Krishna, and also they do the jnana yoga. That's a bit incorrect way. Here it's like you're speculating. How can I achieve Brahman? And also they do austerities. How they control their mind. And in case of Ashtanga Yoga, which we studied today, they control my mind, senses, eightfold path. That is, we heard that dhyana, pratyahara, that circle, meditation. Plus, they meditate on the super soul, which is Paramatma sitting in the heart, and that becomes your Ashtanga Yoga, and that's how Dhruv Maharaj did it. But we don't have to sit like Dhruv Maharaj, stop eating food, control your mind, senses, which is so impractical in Kali Yuga. So all you need to do is connect to Krishna through bhakti. When you connect through bhakti, you're giving your heart to Krishna. You're giving your soul to Krishna, which is like you're loving Krishna with devotional service to the Supreme Lord. That is Bhagwan. What is the form of, who can tell me? What is the form of Paramatma? What is the form of Paramatma called as? Ahana.
Paramatma is the four-handed Krishna.
Hari Bol, thank you very much. Now let's lower hands and say, what is the form of Krishna? Nidhishri.
Shyamasundara form.
Hari Bol, thank you. So Shyamasundara, the two-handed Shyamasundara is Krishna. So we connect to Krishna through two-handed form. And we also saw how all of this can be curbed by if we have a chance to take an elevator, we'll take an elevator instead of taking the stairs. And Dhyana Yoga is the stairs and Bhakti Yoga is the elevator. So we should try to take the elevator and reach Krishna as soon as possible. So Krishna says over here, sorry, Arjuna says over here, okay, you're giving me something very, very difficult. Let's see who would like to recite. Who would like to recite the shloka? Arman?
Yes, Mataji. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna paramati balavadridham tasyaham nigraham mane vayor iva vayor iva shudushkaram.
Hari Bol, thank you very much. Can you also read the translation?
The mind is restless, turbulent, obedient, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind.
Thank you very much. So Arjuna is saying over here, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. He's saying that this mind is so restless. You know, have you seen the monkeys, how they keep jumping around everywhere? Mind is like that. It keeps jumping into one, into another, like that. It's so turbulent, it's so obstinate, it's so strong. Oh Krishna, and oh subduer of the enemy, how I think it's very difficult of what you're telling me. It's difficult to control my mind. Even Krishna is saying that who's the best archer. He's the best among the archer even in his own kingdom. He's saying, I cannot control this mind. And the process that you're telling, how do I control this such an obstinate mind? It's difficult. Please tell me a better process, he's asking. So here we see that controlling mind is very, very difficult, but controlling mind is so very important for us in case of Bhakti Yoga also. So how to control our mind? There is a mechanism to control our mind. What is that mechanism? Of course, it's very difficult to control our mind, but it's required to an extent that we control our mind even in Bhakti Yoga. Through our intelligence, we should make a decision. And then, what does mind have? Mind is a storehouse of all the thoughts, unfulfilled desires, and it has previous experiences. So, if we have to compare our mind, it's like a memory box. Remember, we have a random access memory. So, mind can be compared to a random access memory or like a hard disk where it has all the pictures of what and all we've done. So it has, through our eyes, it would have captured the sense objects like, okay, it's rasgulla, okay, it's playground, okay, it's beautiful art. So these are things it captures from our eyes and knows, ah, that's a beautiful garden, ah, that's actually a perfume coming from somewhere. So ah, that's mama cooking food. So these are the things that you will have, and those memories are captured in your mind and it's sitting in your mind. And tongue. So whenever you would have eaten food, a certain taste comes up. So, oh, this bitter, this is very sour, it's spicy, it's tangy. So these are the things that is memories of these tastes are sitting in your taste buds, which are transferred to your mind as a memory. And ears, you would have heard some music, you would have heard kirtan. So all of this is actually sitting in your mind as a memory. And skin, okay, that's hot, that's cold, that's pleasant, that's very bright, that's very scorching heat. So all of these memories are sitting in your mind as a memory. So it's a storehouse of all the thoughts and also unfulfilled desires, and it has some experiences sitting in your mind. But the major thing is the intelligence which makes the decision. Should I do this or not do this? Should I have this taste or should I not have this taste? Should I look at this person or not look at this person? Should I stop listening to this music or not listening to this music? This mechanism is actually coming from you. You can decide that, I actually, with your intelligence, you should make a decision. I don't want to listen to some kind of a bad music. Rather, I will listen to Krishna's Kirtan. When I listen to Krishna Kirtan, Krishna will become very pleased. He is the Rishikesha, and when he becomes happy, automatically I will become happy. Same way, remember we saw we can have 9 types of devotional service. Here is how we can offer our senses to Krishna. Instead of smelling something that's mundane like a perfume, rather we should say, let me offer all the flowers to Krishna, and I can, once I'm removing all the flowers, I will smell nice flowers offered to Krishna. When you do that, Krishna becomes very happy. Automatically you will become happy. And tongue, offer all the food that you cook to Krishna, and then you can eat the prasadam. And ears, we saw how we can listen to Krishna Kirtan. And also skin, you can go to temples and touch the Lord's lotus feet, or if you want to, you can at home also, you can dress up the Lord. You can make Krishna wear beautiful garments, and you can stitch beautiful garments for Krishna, and then you can touch the deities. This is how we need to offer our respects to Krishna, and we can use our senses with our intelligence. Oh, look at this. We have somebody who's not. So here we are seeing how mind can be our enemy or our friend. So we can see how we can make our mind an enemy or a friend. How? Saying, okay, one of you can recite the shloka. Kavin?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hey Krishna.
Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha.
Hari Bol, thank you very much. So here he's saying one must deliver himself with help of mind and not degrade himself. So you should not fall down. Rather than that, you should uplift yourself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So you can use your mind in goodness, or you can make him as an enemy with controlling the mind properly. So if you are making your mind your friend, you will always train your mind in such a way that it's always doing something that, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do this. You can explain your mind with your intelligence, and you can make it do always good things. So the nature of the mind is, if it is controlled, it is your best friend. If you're not controlling your mind, it will be your greatest enemy. So you should know how to control your mind. If you're not controlling your mind, it will make your senses control you. Your senses will control you, and you will become a slave, or you'll become a slave of your own senses. Rather than you being your slave of your senses, you should become servant of Krishna by controlling your mind. So this is what the 6.5 shloka is saying. So here we saw in a different way also how we saw the body of the chariot, where senses, that is sight, smell, hearing, touch and taste, are all your senses, and the horse reins are there, right? They are your mind. You control your mind through all your senses, and then this is your intelligence. Intelligence is holding the reins. So you should control your mind with your intelligence so that they go in the right direction instead of all the horses moving in 5-6 directions, right? So your soul will be happy if you are serving Krishna. Here is your soul who is so shocked because all your senses going in different directions, but you want to control your soul. Sorry, you want to control your senses and you want to make your soul happy. When is your soul happy? Soul is always happy when you are with Krishna. So we want to serve Krishna by controlling our mind through our intelligence, and that way our senses are controlled. Okay, so what is the formula to control mind? Krishna is asking, okay, you've told me this is how I need to control, but what is the formula? Please give me something so that it's easy for me to control. So Krishna is saying, Abhyasena, practice. So you need to practice. Okay, now I'm feeling like eating gulab jamun. Is this really offered to Krishna? No, it's not offered. Let me offer it to Krishna. That way you will practice every single time you're eating something, you're practicing. Every time you're smelling something, is this offered to Krishna? No, it's not. Practice. So that's practice. Do the following 9 process of bhakti, especially hearing. So you will be learning to do bhakti only. The first step is hearing. Hearing about Krishna is the most important part. And first is abhyasena, by practice. Second is with detachment. Vairagyena. It's called vairagyena in Sanskrit. So don'ts. Detaching your mind from activities not devoted to Krishna. So wherever you see that there is no Krishna over here, you just think that this is not meant for me and you just move away from there. And wherever there is Krishna and all his activities, you just say, okay, this is useful for me, and you attach yourself over there. So that is detachment. Vairagyena, abhyasena, you should control your mind. Vairagyena, abhyasena, you should control your mind. This is important mantra. How do I control my mind? Abhyasena, vairagyena. Practicing detachment. Practice with detachment. Practice with detachment. So here we see what is the destination of somebody who fails in achieving this yoga. So Arjuna asked, "Oh Krishna, so much problems that a person goes through, and what if somebody is trying to reach out to you in so many lives, and what happens to him if he is not successful in this life?" Arjuna is asking all our doubts. He's saying, okay, I do dhyana yoga, I sit down, I don't think I can be understanding. Finally, somebody thinks dhyana yoga is very difficult and then they die. And then in the next life, they come back and say, you know, dhyana yoga was difficult, let me do the bhakti yoga. Finally, they come to bhakti yoga. What if somebody is not unsuccessful, not get cleansed completely? What happens to such a person? Krishna is saying, the unsuccessful yogi, after many births of and many years of enjoyment on the planets of pious living entities, is born into a family of a righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So he's saying, don't worry Arjuna, if he has already taken path of bhakti, he will go to the higher planets, and then again he will come down and he will be born into a family which is good family, so that is born into a family of righteous. That is a family where they are already practicing Krishna consciousness. I will retain their Krishna consciousness, and also they might be even coming from a very rich family, so they don't have to, if they are born into a rich family, they don't have to again look for money, how to live my life. This way they won't have to waste time. Rather than that, they can perform bhakti. So when somebody is in a rich family already, instead of wasting their time in playing and doing other mundane things, they should start performing bhakti. That's why you're born into such families, is what we need to understand. And what is the destination of a person who fails to achieve this successful yoga? So he's saying, if one is unsuccessful after a long practice, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great, who is surely of great wisdom, certainly such a birth is rare in this world. So this is the next biggest thing. What is that? Someone who has already practiced Krishna consciousness for very long time, he will again be born into some family which is already following Krishna consciousness, and then he will have with great wisdom he can still practice and be he can continue his Krishna consciousness, and such a birth is very rare. So if you see our Srila Prabhupada also, he was born into a family where they were already into so much devotion. Then Arjuna is asking, who is the greatest yogi? Now we have Narada Muni over here. So we have Arjuna asking, who is the greatest of the yogi? So here we see the most important shloka. He's saying, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo matah. All the yogis, the one who's great faith. So the important thing is great faith. Remember, we saw ultimate faith before we could start bhakti. Who always abides me and thinks of me with himself, renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So Krishna is giving his verdict. The verdict is one should have great faith and he is abiding by all the rules I'm giving to him, and he thinks that whoever is inside him is also me. So we should think that who is inside us? He is Krishna. He is watching us, and he renders. So we should render our loving service to Krishna. By doing this, we can go to Krishna. So he's saying bhajate. Bhajate means devotional service. So he's saying do worship me. Bhajate, the one who worships me with all their hearts, he is the highest of the all yogis. Right? This is a very nice shloka. You should remember this. There's also homework shloka. So our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the same thing about chanting. Here he's saying that chanting is the greatest thing in the current time. What is it saying? Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam Vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam buddhivardhanam Pratipadam purnamritaswadanam Sarvatma snapanam paramam Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told that the glory of the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtana movement is prime benediction of humanity at large because it spreads rays of benediction. So he's telling that you should all do the Sankirtana. It is very blissful, and once you taste this nectar, you will not be anxious and your hearts will get cleansed. So here we are seeing the glories of chanting. In the age of Kali, the process of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the only method by which you can cleanse your sinful mind. When the mind is completely cleansed of all the reactions, that is sinful reactions, one can understand his duty in the human form of life. And also it's written that Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatara. So it's written that Krishna descends in the Kali Yuga in the form of his holy name. Although Krishna is not around us, we should not think Krishna is not around us. Krishna has taken the form of his name. Kali Kale Nama Rupe. He is in form in his name. As soon as we say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He is around us. Although we may not have the eyes to see him, he is around us. When we chant the holy name, we are coming in contact with Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, because Krishna is not different from his name. That's why, my dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about the age. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become free from the material bondage and be promoted to transcendental kingdom. So these are the glories of chanting. How can Just a sound give you so much happiness. Have you seen? When you start chanting, you become very happy. You feel very, very happy from inside. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra isn't an ordinary sound. Krishna is present in his names. And because Krishna is a reservoir of all spiritual pleasure, his names are also full of pleasure. That's why a great spiritual master once said, he wanted millions of ears to hear Krishna's names and millions of tongues to chant the name. So there was a guru who also told us that I want millions of ears and millions of tongues so that I can hear and chant Krishna's names. So how to chant? Let's see what are the do's of chanting. Do's of chanting of Mahamantra. Chant the Panchatattva mantra before starting to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. What is the Panchatattva mantra? I'll post it on the WhatsApp group. The chanting Mahamantra is Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So this is the Panchatattva Mahamantra which I will post it and most of you know it. So we just told that Mahamantra Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. That is something that you will do it on the head bead. I will post how to chant also. Next, chant audibly, not like you're whispering. You should not whisper like ants. You should talk loud. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that the living entities around you also should get liberated. Pronounce each name distinctly. Some of them, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. No, that's not right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Clearly, it should be clear to your ears. When you're chanting, the important thing is you get the sound vibration to your ears. Chant with respect, devotion and concentration. Some of them, see, they're sitting and chanting. While they're chanting, they're talking to each other. That's not respecting Krishna. Respecting Krishna is while you're chanting, you sit in a place and you don't go. 50% of them, they were ready to do dhyana yoga. Instead of that, just hold your chanting beads and sit in a good place and don't distract yourself from talking to others. You can chant in any place. That is the good part. You can sit in any place. You can sit and you can walk and chant. You can be facing in any direction. There is no rules for this. You can even chant while you're in the washroom, but don't take the mala. Don't take the mala. But you can chant even in the washroom. You can say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even in the washroom, but don't take your mala. While you're on mala, you can chant anywhere, but not to the washroom. But that doesn't mean that I can chant anywhere, think anything bad also. You should not be thinking, how do I cheat this person? That's not how you chant. You think of Krishna while you're chanting. You can chant at any time. However, it is recommended that you chant during the early morning in Brahma Muhurta. So it's recommended that we should chant early morning at 3:30, which is very nice. But I know it's very difficult for some of you to wake up very early. If you're able to wake up early in the morning, it's good. If you're not, it's fine. You can chant any point of time. It's very good. Sometimes we are going to sit and wait for some people when we have a meeting. Instead of waiting, just chant. Or if you're actually going down to play, while you're walking, you can chant. Right? It's very auspicious. You can chant before taking bath also. There's no rule that you have to take a bath to chant. Not required. You can take a bath while you're taking bath also. You can chant before taking a bath. After also, it's fine. It's recommended to chant keeping count. So you'll ask, Mataji, why do I have to chant on the beads? We should always chant on the beads so that we have a count of the number of mala that we have chanted. It's good to have a count so that you know how much you chanted. So it's preferred that you chant on the Tulsi mala, or for a starter, you can also do it on the Neem mala. Now we'll see what are the don'ts of chanting. One should not chant only a portion of Mahamantra. Some of them I have seen, they chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So that's all wrong. And some of them they chant Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. This is also wrong. You should start from Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. You should not start from Hare Rama. It's ulta, right? You should chant Hare Krishna first. And one should not chant while reading a book or a newspaper, watching TV. This is not correct. You should not be reading a book and chanting. What is the point? You're not talking to Krishna. When you're talking to someone, you look at their face properly and then you will chant thinking of them. You will not, when you're talking to Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead, you have to give 100% concentration to him. You can't think I can read a book and chant on one side. It's not correct. Look here. What are the benefits of chanting? You will get freedom from reactions of sin. So if you have something very bad in your mind, like I want to kill somebody, I want to burn somebody, I want to, yeah, these are the very bad things that happens in Kali Yuga. If you have such bad thoughts, and even like you want to cheat your friends or lie around, or you want to lie around to your parents, all these things will go away from your heart. You'll get freedom from this, so you'll feel very peaceful when you're free from all this. And also, Sankirtana is another type of lovely way of calling Krishna. And also chant and be happy. Srila Prabhupada says that many people, they think that they are dancing for the tunes of other movie songs and they are happy, but Srila Prabhupada says when you're chanting, you're very happy, right? So chant and be happy. All we are done with the session. We can all chant once for lovely listening of all participants. Let's unmute all of you. Yes, you can all chant once.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna,
This is the time.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Rama Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.